spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. And today my guest is Janette Thornley. Janette and I met quite a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, and became friends pretty quickly. She was one of my guests at the PRI show a couple of years ago, and we stayed connected and we follow what each other's doing. She's a big supporter of the IWMA, which I appreciate. And so I wanted to have Janette on the podcast, and we've been trying to figure that out. And so now the timing was right. And so today we're going to hear Janette and about her story. So why don't you start with a little bit about yourself and where you live, and just, you know, a little bit so people can get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you for that, Belinda. I'm honored to be on your program today. There's so much to share about where I come from, but my roots. I was born and raised in Oregon. I spent several years in Baltimore, Maryland. I moved to Wisconsin to work for the Harley-Davidson Motor Company. Found myself back on the West Coast in 2009. Thought I was going to go back home and spend some time there. Then my Harley position provided me the opportunity to move to North Carolina, which is where the love of my life calls home, and I now do as well. So I'm in Statesville, North Carolina.
Okay. And so you have family, pets. What do you like to do when you're not working or racing your motorcycle?
Well, I am 53 years old, and I have a strong passion for motorcycling. I have a beautiful blended family with my husband's son and daughter-in-law and 6.5-year-old, I guess 6.5-year-old twin grandchildren. I also have 4 fur children that were affectionately adopted through various channels, 3 dogs and 1 cat. And we certainly have a full home of different things and love, a lot of love.
Yeah, that's awesome. The fur animals are just as much part of the family as the children are, that's for sure.
Yes.
So why don't you start with, we're going to cover a lot of things today, but why don't you start with, how did so you worked for Harley Davidson, that's probably where you got your interest in motorcycles, but how did racing come to be a part of that?
You know, there was a clear point at which I sought out, you know, what I'm doing today. But what's interesting as I, you know, kind of tell my story a little bit and reflect some, I didn't realize during my career with Harley Davidson and traveling to several of the Harley dealers that some of the big names like Johnny Mancuso, who ran a Top Fuel Harley, and Ray Price, who also was a big Top Fuel Harley racer, I recall sitting on those machines back in the early 2000s, but at that point never said, I want to do this. I thought it was cool. I thought, you know, and of course I sat on them and got my picture taken on them, but I, you know, again, I didn't like go, this is what I need to do. But then in probably mid 2000, I found myself at a local track in Wisconsin as a spectator. And as with many, I found myself going, that looks like a girl. She's out on the racetrack. And they're like, yeah, girls can do that too. So the next week, you know, it was a bike night, you know, kind of Wednesday night bike night, bracket racing. And so next week there Jeanette was, she had her little street bike out there, running these bracket races. But again, it wasn't like, oh, this is my future, this is what I'm going to do. We were just having fun with it. And so we had fun that summer. And then, fast forward a little bit, '09, I moved to Oregon, and I was actually spectating again, went to Woodburn, Oregon, drag strip, and there's Ray Price. Well, there was a group of Steve Dorn was a big Top Fuel racer and had the support of Lattice Motorsports out there in Portland. But several of the Top Fuel Harley racers were out there supporting their event. And I was like, hey, I know this dealer. I wonder if he remembers me. And so we spoke, and at that point I was in a transition in my life and relationship. So I had a little bit of extra time on my hands, and I actually started to follow their team and learn a little bit more about what professional drag racing, was. One thing I say is I'm not really a follower, and it's not that I don't admire and respect those, that have paved the way for us, but I didn't know what NHRA was. It again, not for any other reason. I just was off doing my thing. But so Ray, Ray Price taught me, about the sport, and I started following that. And that was late 2010 and early 2011. And mind you, I'm a 6 foot tall, healthy woman. And so as I kind of got more attracted to drag racing, I was like, where would I fit in? Mind you, I'm still on the West Coast. At this point, I'm single. How could I get into racing when a lot of it's east of the Mississippi?
Mm-hmm.
And Ray was kind enough to kind of mentor me along. And through that relationship, I stepped into nitromethane. I decided that I would have a better chance of him supporting a bike being moved around the country on his rig, and maybe getting his fellas to help be support for me. If I was playing with nitromethane, which was a love of his, and it did work out. So late 2011, I signed up for a school. It was actually a fella out of North Carolina as well, that Johnny Vickers of Hawaii Racing had a school that you could learn on their carbureted nitro class motorcycle. They provided it for you, and it was mid-year of 2011. I signed up, and away I went at the end of the year. And I don't want to say the rest is history, because there's a lot of memories and a lot of heartaches through the years, but that's kind of how it started.
Okay, so then why don't you tell our listeners, for those who don't know, what kind of racing are you involved in now with your motorcycle?
So so I do quarter mile drag racing, and in motorcycle nitromethane classes, there's actually 3 classes of motorcycle of the nitromethane class. There's a carbureted class that is called Pro Fuel, the old Pro Drag class. If anybody is a follower of drag racing for years, it has evolved some, but it's 121 cubic inch, again, carbureted motorcycle. The second step is what they call a nitro funny bike, or the old Pro Fuel class, and it is a high gear only injected bike, and I think the max cubic inch on it is 150, estimated about 700 horsepower. And then the Top Fuel Harley bike is the beast of the nitro classes of motorcycles. Some may have seen them on the NHRA circuit. for the last few years, and they are 200 cubic inch max and injected, and many of them are 2-speed.
Okay.
So, and they're about 1,000 pounds and 1,000 horsepower.
And so which one of those classes do you typically run?
So my career has been on the I call it the baby class, the baby nitro, 121 cubic inch. We run about 7.3 seconds pretty consistently. On a really perfect day, you can run in the 20s, and there's been guys that have been closer to the 7.0s, but 170, 175 across the finish line. I don't want to say it's fast enough, because you know me, I want more, and maybe I'll get there, but so right now I'm in the carbureted class, which is actually, one of the harder classes we tend to be a little more consistent, but it's also harder to tune to the air in the track.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you what's the fastest you've ever gone?
So the mile per hour fastest, I've been 185. This was when Ray was still helping me, and he always had the mile per hour behind the motorcycle. So 185 on that particular class. I have been 197 when I licensed for my Top Fuel Harley license. So, but on the carbureted bike, the quickest I've been is 7.207, and that was out in Sonoma, in California.
Okay, that's pretty fast on a motorcycle.
It is.
Yeah. People don't realize, because we see NASCAR or whatever going 180, 190, breaking 200s, which is very fast as well. But on a motorcycle, that's a whole different story going that fast, because my husband and I are motorcycle riders, and he has a Yamaha FZ1, which is a fast bike for a street bike. And he's been over 100 on it, and I was on the back one time. And I'm like, okay, that's fast enough. And there was nobody around, and it was, but it's too fast to be going down the highway. But on the racetrack, you're going another 70 to 80 miles per hour, and I can't even imagine. So I have a lot of admiration for anybody that does that, but especially women that do that. That's crazy, Janette. It's crazy. But it's a fun crazy, isn't it? Because it's your passion and it's what you love to do. Yeah. So you're going to be racing this summer. Where could we go to look to see how to find out where you're going to be racing?
So you and I talked about this a little bit offline, but the last year and a half has presented some disappointments and challenges and changes, and not trying to deviate from your question, but I honestly have not put a hard, firm schedule out there. I have through the grace of God, I continue to keep moving forward in any way possible that I can in life right now, and overcoming some of the challenges and obstacles that were put in front of me. I'm just kind of rebuilding, my purpose. And, this past few months has been, what once was a strong passion of mine and kind of owned my life, meaning racing, and the drive I had to be a Top Fuel Harley racer, and not the first woman licensed, but potentially the first to compete in a NHRA event. It kind of put me in this. Now it's become more, I don't want to say it's a burden, but it's more pressure, and that's really necessary in life. Life is so hard as it is.
Sure is.
That what I recognized in the last probably year is like, I need to step back and really evaluate what are my priorities, and how can I have a great quality of life and give back to the community and the support and the sport, while keeping the balance with my family, my professional life, and finances too.
Right.
So
So let's talk about that a little bit more in depth. So we did have a little bit of a conversation before we got online. I follow you on Facebook, you follow me, we stay connected that way, even if we don't talk very often. And I was following what you were doing over the weekend, and you went to a motorcycle rally. And those are the kinds of things that I know. I wasn't there, but I know what you brought home with you, because they're so inspiring and so, make you really take a look at yourself sometimes, those kind of events. So I asked you if you'd be willing to share about the weekend and where you are and some of the struggles. And you said your life's an open book. And so, Janette, just tell us about where you were and kind of what you've been going through, and what the rally, what it meant to you to be there, and what you brought home from it.
Okay, sure. So I'll kind of backstep a little bit and kind of talk about 2020 quickly, how and kind of what disappointments were out there that has taken me down the path of where I am today. And that's it kind of started like on a high note in 19, so November of 2019, I made licensing passes for my Top Fuel Harley license, and I was successful. It was amazing. It was, I was so excited to, Ray passed away in, can't remember if it was 15 or 16. I think it was 16. And, when he passed away, I don't believe my dream was gone, but it changed, because I really thought he would be instrumental in getting me into that top fuel Harley class. So I was, finding my way through that. And in 2019, we had kind of put a plan together what this might look like, and had a team put together, and again, got my license. Great thing. January rolls around, and we're looking at the first event. We've got Pomona coming out in 2020 with our team. In the end of January, my stepdad passed away unexpectedly. And deaths happen. I mean, they do, and I'm not saying that to be cold. Pop had a great life. He looked at me as his daughter of many years. My real dad died when I was 6. So he basically was kind of the only father I knew. That was quite devastating, given, my mom, now I'm looking to help my mom. So as we age, there's a whole set of emotions that come with life and death and aging. But anyway, so the end of January, he passed away. February, we went to Pomona with our team. We had some struggles. We were set to go to Arizona in February, was it February, March, whatever that was. And we did. Again, we had a little bit of team struggles, and then the team kind of dissolved. And through 2020, I had a sponsor gentleman that had approached me to do a coffee business, and I was going to be his ambassador. And then he asked me to be a partner. And I spent 6 months kind of developing that, working with him. And then that all changed. And I kind of left, was feeling deserted, and failure. I'm not capable. What's happening. I'm typically good at relationships. I'm good at business decisions. So much is like happening and changing. And then, things with obviously 2020 in itself was had its obstacles. And as things kind of opened up a little bit, we had a couple of events to go to, and my husband was like, "You want to go test the motorcycle?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just not feeling it," and then he'd say, "You want to go test my," I'm like, "Oh, my back hurts, or I don't feel good," something. But I just kept coming up with this excuses. And finally the season, ended, and I got real up in my head in kind of a few days where I'd be in a ball in the fetal position, like, I don't want to move today. I don't want to get out of bed today. Like, okay, this is not me. I have overcome things, and because I have a great network of people, women like yourself, women like Angie Smith and Kelly Klontz, and some strong women out there that really step up, and they check on you, and they kind of let you be where you need to be, but then push you through there when you need to be pushed. And I finally got real, admitted to my husband what was really happening, and I had the fear of failure. So I didn't want to get out there and put myself in a position to fail again. So when I had admired this rally that I actually attended this last weekend, I'd seen it as an option several years in a row. They've been doing this rally for 29 years, I believe. They started in 93. And it always fell on Bristol, Tennessee weekend, which was always fairly local to us, and just to be, an event that we would always want to go to. And so I never committed to it. And this year, back in January, I said to one of my close girlfriends out of Maryland, "Deb, let's commit to this. I really want to go to this." Little did I know that, come mid-June, it would be like the perfect thing and the perfect time for me. But anyway, so I committed this way back in January, even knowing that we had an option to be on the racetrack that weekend, that I wanted to commit to this and give it up. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to actually speak to the ladies there. And she said, "In all these years we've done this, we've never had a racer, come talk to us." But it was really cool. One of the things I want to share, the MidAtlantic Women's Motorcycle Rally is what I attended. Their motto, "Women helping women with the challenges of cancer." So that in itself was a really powerful thing to be involved in, because what they do and why they do it is to help women, the two charities that they help with. But getting to the point of getting to York, Pennsylvania, is a whole story in itself too, because I found myself Monday an emotional wreck, felt incapable of functioning. And I'm like, how do I turn another page, in this book called life, because oftentimes, my friends call on me, and, we have our social media channels that everybody's looking at you, that you are such an amazing woman. You're so strong. You could do anything. And I'm like, I put all this pressure on myself that I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to get emotional, but
Okay.
but it helps to be real. And what I found in being real to myself in these last week was, my husband said, you can't ride up there by yourself. It's not that I don't trust you, I don't trust the others, and I was like, I'm like, I can do this, it's only 450 miles. But I found somebody to ride with me, and so he was disappointed that he was going to have to stay home. And then it was like, Tuesday night I said, you know what, I'm still a little weary. I didn't tell him this, but I'm thinking through again, I'm still a little weary. So babe, why don't you ride up with Adeline and I, and then just spend the night, and then you come back on Thursday. And he's like, okay, that's a great idea. And halfway up, I said, I had an ulterior motive. I said, I wanted to get into my second spot and not think about, obviously you think about ride and you're still responsible, but I didn't have to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding that ability to navigate through life and the obstacles that we have is really what's key into getting to that next spot, and I was so proud of myself because I was like, no, you can't stay, you need to go. But that helped me get to where I needed to be. And the weekend, I did get to speak to the gals Friday night, and again, very real about life is full of change and disappointments and stuff. And kind of one of my mottos is, you got to feel the emotion, but try not to get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can move, even if it's ever so slight, sometimes it's in the wrong direction, but at least we're moving.
Right.
And we can potentially connect with that and get redirected. But if we stay stuck, we can't get to that next place. So
how many women were at the rally, Janette?
So they had, I know, like 225 or 35 pre-registered. I think they anticipate, I'm sure we hit the 250 mark. I know last year when it got canceled, they were tracking at about, a 400 attendee.
Yeah.
But it was the right amount of women there. It was a really cool, it was kind of self-guided, there was workshops there. What was really cool is, the workshops that they had there to kind of help educate, grow professionally and personally, and learn about, some different opportunities that are out there. So, but it was just kind of a casual, fun event. Friday night, we got a little wild on the dance floor and did a 70s, theme night. And just, you probably read my post. It was like, all these like women that just to be able to disconnect if it's only just for a day,
Mm-hmm.
to step away out of the norm.
Yeah.
So it was just really cool.
I know you brought a lot to the event for those women because you told your story. And you've told us, some of the story. You've had disappointments and challenges just like we all have. And yet, like you said, people look at Janette, that's she has her Harley racing license and she competes, all over the country and everything's perfect. And it's not, is it, Janette? None of us have a perfect life. And we tend to hold back and not share the things that we feel like people would be disappointed if they knew about us. And so being able to be open and sharing that with those women, and then now today with me and the people that'll listen to this, is something that is needed more than And so I just appreciate your willingness to share. What things do you feel like you took home with you from that event that's going to help you move forward and not be afraid to fail? Because, you know, if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to succeed either. So there's a risk. There's always a risk, isn't there? But you are a strong and beautiful woman, and you will overcome this. You know that. But what did you bring home that's going to help you get back on that path?
I think the biggest takeaway for me was, you know, the being truthful to myself. You know, nobody's putting this pressure on me but me.
Mhm.
Really. I don't have anything to prove to anyone. It's really the pressure that I put on myself. I mean, my husband supports me. He's a wonderful person. He's intense at the track, and a lot of people can't connect with that, but he really does support my decisions. In the fact that, you know, that I didn't include him earlier in, you know, some of my thinking and feelings. You know, I lost a few months of potential, I guess, I don't know if recovery is the right word, um, but healing, you know, because I've healed a lot since I was very honest and forthright, you know, with what emotions I had experienced. But I think the other thing is, and I use that word failure, and it really isn't a failure. It's, again, when we're in a competitive sport and in a competitive society, there's so much judgment and so much placed on, you know, what could be or should be, and, you know, and those things. And I'm like, okay, who am I competing with? I mean, nobody but me. And I think that's really, um, the biggest takeaway. Some of the other, you know, ladies that had set up their, you know, spots, you know, one is a women in collation to help, you know, again, motorcycling awareness. You know, I want to get involved with what they're doing, and I was like, how do I find this time to squeeze this in? But, you know, again, um, having a cause and really something you're passionate about is truthful, you know. And everybody is involved. You know, they were very supportive of the racing. They wanted to know about my schedule, and I said, you know, I'm really in the position right now where I'm, what used to be an outlet for me has now become a little bit of a, it's not a burden. I'm just trying to find its place in my life right now.
Mm-hmm. And if has it stopped being fun, Janette? Or
So when, obviously the one event I went to that I raced and I was successful, and I brought home the belt for the Friday night event, and we ran numbers within 2/100ths of our 8th mile, you know, event. That's a lot of fun. You know, but it's a lot of work too. I mean, people don't see the countless hours that,
yeah.
you know, we put in off track. You know, and like many other race teams, you know, it's just my husband and I.
Right.
You know, we get there, we set up, we, you know, tear down. We got to eat in between. I got to prep the motor home. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. And, you know, the time that we had with our family last year really, you know, and again, I think the impact of my pop's passing has really made me evaluate where I spend my time and who I spend my time with.
Right.
You know, there's some folks, I'm just going to put it out there. There's some folks that'd rather not see me at the racetrack for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I'm a competitor. Yeah, I can win races. You know, if I step into another category, you know, I might, you know, hurt the feelings of some of the fellas because I'm good at what I do. I'm just gonna,
That's right.
I mean, I have a skill that I'm very blessed to have. You know, but again, it's kind of like at this point in my life, you know,
Yeah.
hanging out at the beach with them grandkids is a lot of fun, and
And
they are growing up so quickly
they
that I
do.
don't want to blink and have missed out too. So
Yeah. That's so true. I was sharing with you that we sold our house last winter, and we spent some time in Arizona, and my youngest daughter, Brienne, had a baby in October, and I was there um 6 days before she delivered him. And so I got to spend a lot of time with him this winter, because when my other grandchildren were born, and I have 14 altogether, I was working, I didn't live in the state they lived in, a whole variety of reasons. So I missed out on that baby time. And with little Huxton, I was able to spend a lot of time with him. And I was really worried, Jeanette, when I left to come back home. I said to Brienne, now we have to FaceTime because I'm afraid he's going to forget who I am, because he's only he's 8.5 months old now. And so I said, I'm worried he's going to forget who I am. And she's like, oh, mom, he's not going to forget, but you don't know. And he and I had bonded so much.
oh,
And those times are so precious. And the first time we FaceTimed, as soon as he saw me, he laughed, and you could tell he knew who I was. So I felt so much better. But but I think as we get older, and you're way younger than me, I'm 65, we look at our life and we say, what really matters? What is it that, when I'm done with this earthly life, what are the things that I did that really matter? And family is at the top. My granddaughter's race, I try not to miss. That's why I'm back in Michigan for the summer. I don't want to miss out on that because I don't know how long they're going to do it. I have grandkids in Arizona. I have a granddaughter in Texas. I just went to see her last weekend and took her to her first NASCAR race. Those are the things that I do not want to miss. I want to do those things. And it sounds to me like that's kind of where you are. You're seeing that life is precious, especially this last year. Everywhere around us, we've seen friends or people we know that passed away from COVID or a variety of other reasons. And we think, wow, I wouldn't have thought that we'd lose that person so soon. And so we need to sit back sometimes, don't we? I said 2020 was the year of stepping back, because I think overall everybody did that. We were forced to spend time with our families in our homes, which is not a bad thing. My husband and I spend a lot of time together, so that was nothing new for us. But it was a year of stepping back. Even for IWMA, people weren't interested in talking about racing or telling a story about racing because they couldn't go to the racetrack. And it was a subject that we were all depressed about, and we were all like disgusted that we couldn't go to the racetrack. And so nobody wanted to talk about it. So I had to kind of step back from that as well and let it ride. And when racing started again, now I'm busier than I've ever been. So you're kind of at that point, aren't you, Janette, where going to the beach with those grandbabies is pretty special?
yeah, they you know, and I'm honored to be their little transporter in the mornings. I go to their house in the morning before uh, they're going to camp, and so Grandma takes them to camp, and just hysterical. I mean, this morning I don't know where um, Trip, who's the boy, came up with, but he decided that, you know, we needed to go to New York City for Christmas, and then, but yet Dad needed to go to Florida. And there were reasons for that, but I'll spare you the detail on that. And I just, and I said, when I talked to him, and it was just so funny. And then McKinley, she likes the beach. So then Trip came up with, well, how about you and Grandpa and McKinley go to the beach, and Mom and Dad and I'll go to New York. And so it just like you can't make that stuff up.
No, you can't.
So, but I don't think I'm done racing. I honestly don't. I'm just trying to find, the financial needs and support are different. And so we're trying to find our way that way. And who knows?
Right.
Maybe, maybe it just looks a little bit different. Or maybe I had a lot of ladies come to me over the weekend. It's like, man, I want to do that. How can I do that? Is there a school to do that? And how, and I was like, well, maybe Janette is a team owner and she can mentor and coach, the next, we need more ladies out there. So, I'm a woman of faith. I believe that, through prayer and listening to the messages that, things will be guided and the right decisions and, future will be, revealed. So, we're kind of in a sitting game right now, but
yeah. And the right thing will come along. And when it happens, you're going to know that it's the right thing. Maybe Janette has a school to teach women how to race. You never know, right? Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes those questions that people ask us, or little somethings that somebody says sparks an idea. It was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, but maybe that's where I will use my talents. So that's pretty cool. You have a lot of talents, Janette, and a lot of things to give to people, as well as your talent for driving a motorcycle and racing at 180 miles an hour. And so I'm sure you're not done, because I can see that it's still, the passion is still there. It shows on your face. So we'll just pray for you to find the right answers, and we're going to follow you and see what's happening. You can't, unless you don't put it out there on Facebook, then I'm not going to know what you're up to, but you're pretty good about sharing where you are and what you're doing. So
I try to.
Yeah. So is there anything that we haven't talked about, or anything that you want to share that you haven't had a chance to say yet?
Just I may have said this, but again, I just want to thank my, the fans, my family, my followers that really, when I am having one of those moments, and my husband was like, you need to clarify what you're talking about on that post, because people think there's something wrong with you. And I said, there is something wrong with me. I mean, I ain't going, there is, I'm not right. There's a lot out there on my heart, but little words are coming. And, I feel like people want to hear from me and want to connect, and I'm not connecting because I'm lost, So, but, as I've said, multiple times, I try to, on social media is, just thanks for being there for me. Thanks for lifting me up in prayer. Thanks for believing in me. Again, I have a new set of leathers. You guys are going to love it.
Oh, awesome.
I am ready to debut them. I just don't know when it's going to be, but, it's kind of going back to my roots a little bit. So I won't spoil it, but
Okay.
You guys you'll get the connection when they're revealed. And, so again, we're not done. We're just finding our way right now.
That's right. It's just a page in the book, and nobody can write our book but us. And so we just have to keep turning those pages, Janette, keep moving forward, and whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen. I firmly believe that. So
I as well.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. like I said, I've been wanting to have you on here. I did a story about you in the magazine some time ago, but it just had never, I don't know, hadn't worked out. And then after I saw you over the weekend, I knew it was the right time, that you had things to share that people need to hear. Men, women, racers, non-racers, doesn't matter. Everybody goes through stuff, as my sister would say. We all have stuff. And so I appreciate that you're being willing to share that, and hopefully you'll help some other women. If somebody wants to reach out to you and maybe they're struggling and you could help them, is that okay? Or how would they do that?
Absolutely. I welcome it. I get, I do get several messages that I am, willing to engage with folks through social media, primarily. I do have a website. It's probably needs a little bit of updating, but social media really is, through messaging, the best avenue to reach me. Janette Thornley is my race page. My private page, it's pretty open. It's open to the public. I don't accept a whole lot of friend requests just because, and that's why I try to drive folks to the race page. But yes, reach out to me, and please, if you need an ear, text message, and if you need to talk, I will give you my number, because I believe that there's power in just a release valve. And sometimes it's just, somebody out there that is non-biased and not immersed in it, and sometimes, again, it's just being the ear. You just need to release it. It's almost like a pressure valve, and you say, I feel better just from
and
getting it off my chest.
Having someone who's not so close to the situation or family, we can sometimes be more honest because we know they're not going to judge us, whereas our family sometimes tends to have opinions, don't they?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Indeed they do.
Yeah. Well, Janette, I hope you have a great week. Thank you again for sharing everything with us. I know that there's going to be people that really take away a lot of the things that you had to say. So I appreciate that. And we're going to be watching you. I'm following you, and hopefully get to see you race at some point here soon.
Sounds good, Melinda. Thanks for all you do for our sport.
Thank you.
Ladies out there.